There's that old saying about an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. The truth is an unstoppable force. It is undeniable. You know it when you see it. You know it when you feel it. It cannot be argued with. There is nothing to debate. It is the truth and it is self-evident. It is an unstoppable force. And we currently exist within the immovable object, Babylon. It seems to have existed for as long as anything has been recorded here to be learned from in hindsight. But this is a different time. As far as we know, no one has ever been able to access information like we are currently able to access it. The truth is more widely available than ever in history. The irony is so thick that the truth, the unstoppable force, is being channeled through the immovable object. The system created this technology and it is being used to transmit the truth. It's the ultimate long con. Babylon has been allowed to build its tower once again. And yet invariably it will come crashing down all over again when subjected to the unstoppable force. There's nothing it can do. Part of understanding the truth is knowing your own limitations, understanding why you are the way that you are, having self-awareness. If I'm self-aware, I have to acknowledge that I am a domesticated human being. In every way that someone can be domesticated. I've been trained my whole life to rely on other people for my own survival. If you took me out of suburbia and you put me in the middle of the woods, I would be lost. In spite of my efforts to acquire information about how one would survive in those circumstances, I would not know what to do, other than feeble attempts at shelter and fire. The very basics. So while I might be more connected to life if I was in that situation, in the way that the indigenous peoples on the planet are and were more connected to life, I would then also be subject to all kinds of threats and situations that I'm currently sheltered from by the immovable object that I am so quick to criticize and envision the dismantling of. Just because I am dependent on it, obviously, currently, does not mean that it should exist. But still, you have to be practical about how much of a hold it has over you. I use every aspect of it on a daily basis. Discussions like this and thinking about things like this always creates this paradox where you have this vision that encompasses a feeling about how things should be, and it's so very difficult to mesh that feeling with any sort of realistic vision of how life would be here on this planet. It's very difficult. And I'm always at a loss for how those two things work together. It's kind of like how the sexual aspect of our existence perpetuates the species, but yet you find every time you remove the sexual aspect from your life, it improves. What kind of paradox is that? Are you telling me that I have to choose between the perpetuation of this experience or my own individual expansion? Is there a way to marry the two together? Probably, but it's very hard to envision with the degeneracy that is currently all around us as it relates to sexuality. The sacred act of procreation, when compared to degenerate pornography and masturbation, 2 pixels on a screen. There's all kinds of paradoxes like this. And maybe it's just a matter of time scale. It's something that's going to take a while. It's a big problem that's deeply embedded within all of us, and it's been transferred from generation to generation. So it's going to take a little bit of time to unwind itself. And you can get impatient when you can see how it should be, how it should feel. And it seems so easy once you get to a certain point to see the finish line in that respect, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. No matter how much we would like it to be like that. But then at the same time, you have ideas of spontaneous remission of diseases based on the power of the mind. And there's no reason why that phenomenon would not be applicable to the whole as it is applicable to an individual. To the point where you can envision a tipping point in the collective psyche that would spur a spontaneous swell of truth that would fundamentally alter reality. A fundamental shift in how we interact with each other. The wavelength that we're all surfing goes from a choppy, up and down, dire wave to a smooth, beautiful ride. I don't know why I always go to the wave metaphor when I'm discussing this, but water for some reason is the most applicable comparison to any sort of intuitive ideas about vibrations or resonances. Because it's a flow idea, and water flows, obviously. And after all, this is probably why Bruce Lee said, "Be like water." It's a question of how much of the internal is going to be mirrored in the external. It's so hard to say what is going to happen here as it relates to the physical reality that everyone is experiencing, but intuitively, deep down, the projection of the future, the images, the feelings are a healed state that is so different than what we're all experiencing right now. It's so hard to see what that would look like here. It's almost unimaginable. When that feeling swells inside of you, there's no way to express it adequately. It's indescribable. It's like embracing a long-lost friend, someone that you haven't seen for so long, but you were really close to, and you see them and you just embrace in this big smiling hug like, hey, it's been so long, great to see you. And that's kind of what it feels like is calling us. It's this mentality, this wavelength that is just waiting to resonate with all of our beings. And it's like that old friend saying, hey, you forgot about me, but great to see you. I'm not going to hold anything against you. I don't even know what you've been up to. Forget about all that. No matter how hard it gets, I just can't escape this sense of gratitude for just being able to experience all of this for however much time I experience it for. It's the strangest thing. Is that some sort of Stockholm syndrome that I have where I'm falling in love with my captors somehow? I don't think it's that, because it's not their world. Their immovable object has no sway over me. I don't lust after it. I have no intentions of interacting with it any more than I'm forced to survive. It's the people that are here that I feel connected to. What's going to happen to them? Because they're a part of me, surely. All I can do is humble myself before God. There is no other answer. That is it. I am not a God, no matter how much people try to convince me that I am. Sure, that spirit dwells within me as it dwells within everyone. Even those who created this mess. It's in you too. But you are not God. You are not the creator. That's the part that Christianity has correct. A Christian, no matter how detached they might be from what the man they call Jesus was actually saying, they still have that part right. To where they're not putting themselves on the same level as God. That's something that all of the other religions and philosophies are lacking. Because a lot of them do put our tiny little human brain on that same level. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, it's like I'm sitting here looking at my desktop computer with an apple and a bite taken out of it on the screen. How much more obvious could they make it? And that's the irony of what I was getting at. When I'm saying the unstoppable force, the truth that will not be denied. There is nothing that the media can say. Any of the outlets, any of its agents, any of its propagandists, they have nothing to say when faced with the truth. It dwarfs them. There's nothing they can do. And the information that activated my awareness and my intuition and gave me life again, born anew, I found it through a device with an apple and a bite taken out of it. That's some irony right there, if there ever was irony in the entire universe. It's the ultimate long con. You can't blame those who created all of this for having the hubris to think that they could create all of this technology and enslave everyone with it into this new feudalism, this new version of serfdom, automated, smart city, cybernetic slavery, digital ID, cashless society, human beings as a barcode. You can't blame them for having the hubris to think that that would actually take place, given the success that they had up until this point. But hubris always leaves blind spots. And so, of course, they wouldn't have seen how they were building the very thing that would destroy their civilization. Because the truth shines a light on this whole thing and it starts to melt instantly. It doesn't matter how many people they take out or neutralize in some way or whatever they have done in the past. It's past the tipping point now. And you might look at me and say, well, look all around at what's going on. The people don't know. The people know. Deep down they know. It's just we're social beings and we don't want to be the one who sticks out. So you go into a place and you see everyone in masks and you say, oh man, look at this. We're lost. No one understands what's really going on. But really, there's probably a lot of people who know what's going on, but they just don't want to deal with the hassle of being heckled for not going along with the crowd. Because everyone has enough going on in their lives already. They don't need that added aggravation. You know, for me, I go to a grocery store that's by a retirement community because it's the one that's closest to me on my way home. And so there are all kinds of grandmas and grandpas in this store. And I wear a mask knowing what I know when I go in there because their peace of mind as human beings is more important to me than any of my other philosophical beliefs about what's going on. I don't need grandma and grandpa freaking out at night because they saw me without a mask in there, because that generation obviously believes what they see on the television and they're terrified, especially since they're in the age group that's the most vulnerable to this virus. So I wear a mask. Now, if you came into that store and I was in there, you would point your finger at me and say, oh, look, there's another one who doesn't know anything. Without any regard for the fact that you were pointing your finger at somebody who knows almost everything that's going on. And that's how this works. We get so locked into the negativity, to wanting to just blame something, someone, and just offload that anxiety to someone else, that we lose sight of the fact that no, there's no reason to do that. Slow down. Stay patient. Don't give in to the temptation to lose your center. Because the truth is an unstoppable force that the immovable object is no match for. And that's not to say that it's going to destroy it or dismantle it out of anger. It's going to do things that might seem like that only because it's the natural state of existence. And we just happen to be somewhere where that natural state currently doesn't exist. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. It probably won't even happen in my lifetime. But those who come after me and you will build on what we started in the same way that we built on those who came before us. And the only thing that we have is our integrity. That's the only thing that can't be taken from us, no matter what we're faced with. I'm leaving here with my integrity intact. You cannot take it from me. And that's what I focus on, because I can't control anything else. Those of you who are a part of this agenda in some way, shape, or form, if you're listening to this, you know how pathetic I am in certain ways, how corrupt I can be, how I fail all the time to live up to the ideas that I'm talking about right now. But I freely admit that. I know that about myself. And no, that's not original sin. No, that is what comes with living in this place. It's a byproduct of existing here. It's not something I deserve just for being born. But you know all of that. So what are you going to do? Use that as an excuse to continue doing what you're doing? I understand if you do that. That's what I do to justify all of my addictions. I find little excuses. Even though I know, I shouldn't do this, I do it. So I get that. But I know you feel me when I'm talking right now. You have to. There's just no way you don't. No matter how much more you know than me, you have to feel a little bit of what I'm saying right now. It has to be coming through just a little bit to where you're saying, oh man, maybe there is something to this. Listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I know so much more than him, but there's something there. That's your intuition. That's not dead. It's alive inside you. It's the spirit of truth that is with you no matter what you've done. I don't care how bad it was. It's still there. That applies to somebody who's involved in this agenda in some way as much as it applies to just my neighbor, regular person right down the road from me. I've done and said some stupid things in my life, but at some point I became aware and understood, intuited that which created me, that which created the awareness that is speaking right now, understands why I did those things. And it's not going to hold them over me. It's going to give me the chance to redeem myself. Okay, now that you know those things, show me that you are on a different path now. Show me through your actions, and I got your back if you do that. And I know that this is a really hard place to be, and you're going to fail in spite of your best intentions. Don't worry, I got your back through that too, as long as your intent stays true and you maintain your integrity. But the weirdest thing happens, when your life is put on the line and you think you might be dying, no matter how much you despise this world due to whatever you're going through or have been through, in that moment and in those moments, you are yearning to survive. And people can do and agree to things in those moments that they will regret. But at the time, there doesn't seem like much of a choice because you're choosing between life and death. It's easy to say, I choose death and my integrity over life, but much harder to carry out when actually faced with that. The fact that the Son of God, quote unquote, would come here and knowingly and willingly go through what it went through, tortured, hung from a cross, crucified, for you, maintaining its integrity the whole time, when it would have been so easy to just give up and say, look, just stop and I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll recant everything that I've said. Just please stop the torture. But it didn't do that. Can you imagine the strength that takes? There is no way that strength like that came from anything related to the human body. That was the mind, the awareness inside of that body that was capable of withstanding torture and maintaining its integrity. I mean, surely that's what it was trying to show all of us. And that is so powerful. That is such a powerful image and example that it's no wonder that it was taken and its essence was corrupted by a fake version of it. Because what other choice would you have if that came into your reality and was turning it upside down? You would have no other option, or at least you would think you had no other option if you were only concerned about the survival of what you had created. Facing your own extinction, what is your response? Well, we human beings have the exact same response when faced with our own death. The prospect of it clouds judgment, and you seek survival. It's the most incredible thing that I can even imagine that this transpired here. And that's a really special example of it that has reverberated for 2,000 years at this point. That's how incredible it was. But there have been others infused with spirit, just not on that level, that did a similar thing. But their names, first of all, are unimportant. But second of all, they're not recorded in the history books that are written by those who are not currently understanding what it's all about. We don't know the names of those people, but they had an impact as well. There are people all around you that are people like this, regardless of what they know. They might not know anything about anything, but it's the spirit that guides them to do what they do. They're not on the internet talking about conspiracy theories. That's just something that comes along with this. And it's like, what are you going to do? Just ignore it? I hope you understand that the man they called Jesus would have been referred to as a conspiracy theorist 2,000 years ago, based on what he was saying.